We're here in the Racket Hall in Rossgray. I'd say there was a fair racket grade down in Borris last night. You're drinking a coffee, the cooler is coming out and you're now drinking a coffee trying to recover.
A latte.
must have been phenomenal last night.
Like it was unreal. So I didn't get to Borris after the Munster final, and the time the county final I'd been, we'd played St Mullins with Cooler the same day. So I missed both of those. So this time, I wasn't even planning on staying down because I was like, All-Ireland semi-final, sure look, the All-Ireland final, that's when you'll rev up for that and have a big night. But after the way it happened, and I just thought, I have to go back to Borris now because the family are going to be in such great form after seeing, obviously Paddy being part of the team that are going to go into an All-Ireland final. And like, there was just, everyone was in such good form. It was kind of, everyone was in dreamland. I arrived into Joe's, the pub, and I'm there having a pint with a friend of mine, and then all of a sudden the team start arriving in and they're all getting clapped in, and it's just short of everyone getting cheered into the room, and in a good way. Like, I mean, it's hard not for locals to get carried away or swept along with the emotion, not in a bad way, in the right way.
If you can't get carried away with that type of thing, you can't get carried away with anything. Do you know what I mean?
And like, I've just never seen people from the town in such good form. Do like, people generally like to give out and stuff like that, and people being catty and all that. But the form people were in was just unreal. And I think like, it's just money can't buy stuff, because it just lifts the whole town, lifts everybody. That's like, everyone has just one thing on their mind, and that's the hurling team, and that's the positivity and the, well, what are you going to do for the All-Ireland? Are you going to book the Burlow? Are you going to get the bus up and down every day? And I mean, the fact that there's that sort of excitement and positivity going on, it's just brilliant for him.
Different type of game as well. I was only kind of commenting to the father. He kept saying, Thomases are still with him or whatever. He was fancying Thomases or fancying to come with a run. After the first quarter, you were 2 up. You were 2 up at half time. You were 2 up at the end of the third quarter. It was a game, and I know you were chatting to Paddy after. It was a game that it always felt like Borris were in control of almost.
Yeah, is it something to do with like the way Borris League are so well set up, and every player on the team, whether they're having a good or bad performance, they're all massive competitors? Is it a thing whereby if Borris League get ahead, they're a hard team to clamber back against because they're going to work so hard and make you do so much to get her score too?
Yeah.
Is there something like that?
There probably is something in that, and even the chances Thomas has got, and I know Paddy said it to you after, they were wides, but they were bad wides, and in the sense that like they weren't very close. Some of them didn't even make the ball stopper. They were that far away because of the pressure that was being put on, and the way they set up, it's very hard for a team to chase a game against them. Yeah. It's very, very difficult because it's going to be very hard to break in through and get a goal. Even the goal that Anya Burke got. There was two lads. It was a brilliant, but there was 2 lads closing in. It was a serious goal. Like, it was a goal that's going to be difficult to get.
If you're to look at Thomas's, like, because we can wax lyrical about Borris all day. Thomas's, some of the big players didn't show up.
It's a fair point, and I kind of said it in the preview show that the couple of times I'd seen David Burke with Thomas's, he hadn't maybe shown as much. Maybe there's a level of expectancy when you go back with your club as well. He wasn't in the game at all yesterday. No. Conor Cooney had a good start. Didn't really follow it up. Did he miss a free as well at one stage as well? I think.
Dara Burke was on them.
Their free taking was like just very, very bad. In fact, Dara Burke missed a lot of frees that you just can't afford, because it keeps you within touching distance, and you could see every free that was missed and every wide that went. It's just like you kind of see facially it was kind of like, doesn't look like it's going to be our day. It was just frustration.
But like I have a massive issue, and have done for a long time, with Galway teams getting directly to an All-Ireland semi-final, because whether they're actually top level, when Port Humna were dominant and all that kind of stuff, whether they're unbelievable teams or whether they're average teams, it's still absolutely unfair that any team would get directly to an All-Ireland semi-final. Like, if Offaly teams were getting directly to a semi-final every year, you would, by a matter of course, the odd year you'd win one against the head, no matter what. Like, I'd say if Thurles got to a load of semi-finals directly,
they would have won 2 or 3 All-Irelands at least.
And same, imagine Ballyhale every year if they're should be guaranteed to win it. So I think it's a big problem that needs to be sorted, and the GA have kind of talked about that, because Thomases aren't, like, they're a good team, and Mellows are a good team, but I don't think that this should continue to stand. They're not quite up there in the very, very elite club teams at the moment.
It's one of the recommendations of the fixtures review task force that they would probably go into either Munster or Leinster.
By the way, like the positive side of St. Thomas's, Shane Cooney, what an absolute exhibition he gave at centre back.
Wasn't he, in fairness?
Like I had often thought, geez, I wonder, he'd be a Cooney, so you'd be thinking, would he be made of the same stuff? Would be a good player? And then he goes out and performs like that. He was by a mile Thomas's man of the match, arguably man of the match anyway. And James Regan would have probably been the only other Thomas's lad where I would have thought, geez, he's after having a good game.
Yeah. Cooney actually went up for a high ball with Jerry Kelly when Thomas's were under all sorts of pressure in the second half. And I says, just great catch, Jerry Kelly. And Cooney had, the hands actually met, but Cooney had actually taken the ball and caught the ball directly. I thought he was phenomenal and kept bursting out the whole time. But the harrying of the Borris forwards in particular, like, it was an absolute heartbreaker. How many scores came from, when you mentioned James Regan, sometimes the negative comes into the head. He stood up to strike a ball at one stage in the second half, was blocked down and someone sent it back over. How many times did the Borris forwards do that? It was the work rate was savage.
Because I had one lad say to me, I think maybe even this morning, James Devaney, JD, the exciting young corner forward, that he didn't have the greatest game. And I know he got the goal at the end, and people said, well, that kind of masked, on the ball, what wouldn't have been the greatest performance he's ever had. But his work rate is unbelievable. And you know that if you're back and you're kind of labouring midway through the game or whatever, and you have a lad who's absolutely lightning, sprinting after you, waiting for you to lift it so he can flick it. I mean, he did that a few times. Yeah. And that even young Kevin Maher as well. Number 13.
He was brilliant.
Over a few key
Is he going to go play a Harty Cup now?
The two of them are playing Harty Cup this week. They're down to play Harty Cup this week. They're both in school today. All Ireland semi-final on Sunday. Back to school on Monday.
Who are they playing in the Harty? Because I think both of them, it's Templemore obviously that they're going to. I forget who they're playing. It could be CBS and Turles, but I believe they're two of the favourites for the Harty as well. But a busy little schedule for them coming up.
Oh, stop the lights. Yeah.
And just on that as well, and JD Devaney as well, that sort of fella that always gets the flick in, that is always there. What the massive difference I always think is the biggest thing in a hurling match, those little breaking balls where the ball is around. If you get the ball in your hand and you're able to burst out, it's unreal. But if you're able to deny the lad possession, as he did several times yesterday, and he won that crucial free where he was going through and was definitely probably going to get a goal, and your man just bare hugged him to the ground,
Which is the right thing to do, actually.
It is actually, in fairness. And Colin Moore said it on commentary, in fairness. He said it was definitely the right thing. A good foul, I think he called it.
There's probably a couple of unsung heroes in the game. Naturally you're going to talk about Brendan Maher, and we've done a separate segment on him, which you can watch there on the YouTube channel. But I would say Tommy Ryan Foot, he'd be fairly unheralded in terms of ball in hand, but his man marking job was on Davy Burke, who we mentioned. And
just on that as well, we had said that we kind of earmarked him last week for that job, and that's like an unbelievable display. He's taken out a 3 or 4 time All-Star, All-Ireland winning captain. He's taken him out
Man of the match completely.
Final. He's taken him out again completely. Huge job.
He moved into the corner for a while at the start of the second. And to be honest, I've often said that before. Why didn't Pádraig Mahoney go in full forward? And he did actually for a very short time against Borris in the Munster final when it wasn't working. So Davy Burke did have to try and do something else. And then he went centre forward for a lot of the second half, and it didn't work out. Now Dan McCormack did a brilliant job as sort of the spare man back there, sweeping from centre back, and then his two brothers either side of him, his other brother in the goals, of course. Ford McCormack's there.
It was brilliant as well, actually, because Donal O'Grady, who'd be big into his tactics, was talking to Dan McCormack in the field after. This is only 2 or 3 minutes, and he was trying to get some tactical stuff out of him. He was like, where does the word come from? Is it Johnny Kelly, or is it between you and Brendan? Who sits back, or the way they play? And it was just, it's such a, to be set up well in a club game makes some difference. They're just making themselves really hard to beat.
The world of difference. Do you know what I thought? I was wondering, would Fintan Burke, who after coming back from the Cruciate has himself in great nick, won a lot of primary ball, but I just thought, why isn't he turning and taking on his man here? Because he has his man under pressure, and as a back, playing cornerback at times, there's nothing worse than a man running at you.
He was probably too keen to deliver the ball and trying to deliver perfect ball inside in a way, and maybe it's a sign that he's not a forward. He wasn't selfish enough. He's not a natural forward. That bit of selfishness that you need, maybe that JD has, he just wasn't displaying that. He was maybe trying to play the perfect ball in. A couple of times maybe he could have taken the ball on and tipped over a couple of points himself.
I wonder even like the fact that you're mentioning Fintan Burke being a back naturally and wing back and unbelievable. Didn't he win He won man of the match for some in some
All-Ireland
games.
semi-final against Tipperary in 2018 under 21.
And then was he also man of the match against Cushendall last year in the semi-final? I might be wrong on that one.
He was outstanding the same
Yeah.
game because I covered that game. Yeah.
So are we kind of stumbling on something here whereby the wing backs struggled for St Thomas in the game on Sunday, and Conor Kenny caught the world of puck outs?
Yeah.
I mean, do we have a solution here with Fintan Burke up in corner forward where, like, he's playing well, but is that the primary concern here at the moment?
Fair point. I don't think Conor Kenny would have been able to put Fintan Burke on the back foot like he did yesterday.
But then would Thomas's have lacked the physicality inside, because they had Conor Cooney out wing forward who was looking to get on ball, and then if you have Oisin Flannery and Ian Burke inside, you're probably lacking a little bit of size if you don't have Fintan Burke.
Correct me if I'm wrong though, but I don't think Thomas has brought on a sub yesterday. Which will maybe show you the limitations of their squad, and that there maybe aren't enough lads to come in and out. Like that's crazy to be chasing a game the whole way through and not bring on a sub. Is a bizarre kind of a situation. Something I've rarely seen, to be honest with you.
Now I know you weren't at the game, but looking down from the gantry, and you know the gantry position, the Gaelic grounds where the radio and the TV present from, that's where I always go up and do my writing from. Unbelievable view. But I was looking down at Paddy Stapleton, my brother, playing fullback. And at the start of the game, there must have been 30 or 40 yards in front of that full back line. And I thought, and obviously Ian Burke got a brilliant goal when the ball went in early. But I thought to myself, this is going to be a long day if you've that amount of space in front of you. But whatever it was, Thomas just couldn't win enough primary ball to get it in there.
And then even the couple of balls that they did win, I don't know, the wheel had kind of turned. Paddy and the boys were able to storm out and attack the ball, which wasn't the case maybe in the first 20 minutes. And it was just a different game, yeah. Thomas is, I don't know. You expect more. But they weren't able to find it yesterday.
But right, so I've obviously taken a bit, or criticised a little bit, the idea of a Galway team getting directly to the semi-final. Now, if they were good enough to get to an All-Ireland semi-final, they would have played, let's say, 3 games in a Munster or a Leinster type championship. You would improve with each game, because you spend most of the year waiting for your county lads to come back and actually get a bit of cohesion in your team. They haven't had as many games to hone their team. Like Borris, if you were to compare the team that I saw in the tip quarter final against Drum to the team that played against Thomas's, they've played 6 or 7 games in that amount of time. I don't think Thomas's would have played as many high-level games during that period. Would Thomas's have improved on a bit more if they had played those games?
Fair point, could have improved. The only thing I will say is this year, obviously, the Galway boys were back unbelievably early. Yeah. So they had loads of time to knit in. Like, they were back, mid-June? And have been there for the past 6 months. It's not a case of come back in September after winning All-Ireland the first week in September or something like that. But they would have been probably more battle-hardened if they got through those games. But it'll be interesting to see if the recommendation of the fixture task review does come true. It'll be interesting to see how many Galway All-Ireland winners are.
Yeah, that's true. Actually, before we talk about Slaughtneil and Ballyhale, a couple of tweets that I noticed last night. Carl O'Kane, who I used to work with in the Star, he tweeted, "No appetite for more club action apparently. Not what my timeline is telling me. Quality and drama is there, with a fair crack of the whip played at the right time of the year in better conditions. Not like for like, but not much word of the pretty meaningless county stuff going on." Obviously there was like Walsh Cup and
I couldn't agree more with that,
Munster
to be honest
Hurling,
with you. The attendances, the attendances were very good. It was like 5,000 and just over 4,000. But how many people were watching on TV? The whole, as he says, like my timeline was flooded with like Brendan Matter related tweets, with Boris related tweets. The appetite that's there for it is massive. Yeah. And in fairness, I would have been critical of the timing of it, and I don't think after Christmas is ideal. But and you've said it before, at least the eyes are on that and that alone this weekend. And for the club final, they'll be on that and that alone that weekend because there's no league action.
Yeah. Philip Lanigan followed it up with a reply to that tweet saying, he's another journalist, "Brilliant drama over the course of the weekend. After the quality live coverage, just a pity there isn't room for a Sunday night show picking up on all the incident and accident while it's still so fresh and setting up the club finals to come." Yeah, I suppose we do our best to stay talking about the club as often as possible, because obviously we absolutely love it. Yeah. But like people actually do care, because it's as close to, like, it is the most authentic version of the GAA.
Oh,
club
100%, yeah. It's authentic when you go back and you're in the pub last night and you're going back and you're seeing what it means to everybody. Like, you sent me a picture, I'll change the wording of it, but he sent me a picture of you with your dad last night, and it's just like, basically his offspring has spawned like have been represented in 3 of the last 4 All-Ireland club finals. Like, if he were a sire, like, he'd be like Galileo at this stage. Do you know what I mean?
That wasn't for public consumption. That was just
everything is for public consumption.
But what about Ballyhale and Slaughtneil? Like, we talked last week about how Ballyhale are going to win this. Their inter-county forward line that Slaughtneil aren't going to be able to keep into them. Delighted to say that they very much proved us wrong in Slaughtneil.
They were brilliant. I think that the thing that I took most from the game was, I don't know if I've ever seen a team respond to scores as well as Slaughtneil did. You probably have only seen bits of the game, but like TJ would get a point, that'd be a real killer from 100 yards, and be a real, she's a real sickener. And Brendan Rodgers would win the next catch from a puck out and put it over the bar. That happened at least 5 times, and particularly in the second half yesterday. Brendan Rodgers got a point as well at one stage. The fullback for the Derry footballers got up as wing forward for Slaughtneil and would be fit to probably get on any club team in the country, definitely, and many county teams. He got a ball and just accelerated away from everyone and put it over the bar. Under the stand kind of touchline. It was just phenomenal stuff. They had their homework done really well tactically. Tried to stifle Ballyhale with 7 defenders, and like, people that talk about sweeper systems and stuff like that, like Slaughtneil played a sweeper yesterday. They scored 119 in the wind up, and they conceded 224. I don't like Boris play with a glorified sweeper as well. He's a sweeper essentially.
Pretty much everyone does now. If you nobody's playing really more than 2 people up front inside these days, and even if they do have 3 up there, most of the rest of the team is out in midfield and further back, and the centre back is at the very least sitting, if not sweeping, and it's all variations of the same sort of thing. But
talk of it like, you know, demeaning hurling at like that's some of the best games we've seen. Those 2 games were brilliant for different reasons probably yesterday, and there was a sweeper in action in both, and it doesn't affect things, and it doesn't affect the scores. Ballyhale scored, we say Ballyhale's attack was stifled yesterday and they scored 224. Like, seriously, like.
But it's an inter-county forward line.
Adrian Mullen was very ineffective yesterday, which just, the first thing came into my head, okay, he's going to score 5 points in the Ireland club final, or something along those lines, like, do you know what I mean? Hopefully, for your case not, but. Actually,
you mentioned the father there a while ago, and he had watched the preview, and he goes, he often mixes up your name, and he goes, well, what does Vardy think now? But so he'll be looking for you to predict Ballyhale to win.
As well, Rocky Ryan on Twitter, who said he's actually, it's like the Drake effect. You know, when Drake was following sports stars around, and every one of them would get beaten after, so whatever team I tip up, the other team should be smiling.
And you're big into your horses, so I hope you don't actually bet too often.
No, my tipping horses is actually not too bad, because the horses don't realise I'm tipping them.
So Cahir O'Kane, he from the Irish News, he had a word on Slaughtneil online yesterday after the game. A lot of similarities between today's loss and Slaughtneil's first foray into Ulster in 2013, where they gave Lochgiel hell but just fell short. Ever since that day, every defeat has met with they missed their chance. History tells us they'll probably get better yet. And then Chrissy McCaig, he tweeted possibly this morning, tough one to take yesterday, but that's sport, and at that level it's always fine margins. If we as a group of players at Slaughtneil leave any mark on people, I hope it's that you should forget the stereotypes and what others expect from you. Believe in your own ability, #Slaughtneil.
To which Dermot Connolly replied with respect.
Did he, yeah?
To Chrissy McCaig, who did an unbelievable job on Connolly in another semi-final a couple of years ago.
He scored 4 off him.
Could have had, yeah. But like, I thought Slaughtneil were brilliant yesterday. It just goes to show you how good they are when attention is focused on one code only. I thought they were brilliant, skill-wise brilliant, really efficient with the ball, really good score taking.
Because we know that the stereotype that Chrissy McCaig is talking about, I suppose, is down to the fact that they're an Ulster team, they're going to be physical, they're going to get stuck into all that kind of stuff. But there's obviously an awful lot more. So like you mentioned, Brendan Rodgers, Cormac Doherty, the McGuiggans, you know, you can stay naming them. I don't want to not name anyone, but like, we're not. Like, they are a very, very good team.
They're a class side, and kind of when you were talking there, I kind of got into my head thinking like they have probably a harder job to get out of Ulster. They have a much harder job to get out of Ulster, nearly you'd say, than would say Thomas's have getting out of Galway in a sense. Do you know what I mean? Like, you're going to have to beat Lochgiel, or you're going to have to beat Cushendall or whoever to get out of it. So like, it would just be interesting to see it'd just be interesting to see if they have some limitations, as in geography is a big limitation. Football is kind of holding them back a bit. It's not holding them back because they're a dual club, but
Yeah,
it just
distracts the focus.
Yeah, you'd love to see how good they would be, and maybe yesterday was a fair sign of how good they would be when focus is just on one court.
But I suppose at the same time, Chrissy can't ignore the fact that they lost to Ballycranagh down the year beforehand. So, you know, if you're going to lose a game like that, people are going to make comment on it. You know, like Coola lose to St Mullins and people don't expect it, and people are going to have a pop at you over it. That's just life. I mean, that's no slight on St Mullins; they were brilliant, but people are going to have a pop. So, the only way to answer them is on the field. And the thing for Slaughtneil, who have been challenged for All Irelands in both coats for so long, and I spoke with Chrissy about this in a recent interview. They're just so mad to get over the line at this stage. I'm sure that Dr. Croke's football final, when they got the red card in a great position, that'll lead at him. But I couldn't imagine. Like, I mean, GA is a way of life for all clubs, and they're not going to change in the sense that next year it's not going to be a way of life. They are going to be back.
Oh no, of course.
Whether it's hurling or football.
It's one of the great things about them as well, though, and the fact that they're able to achieve as much as they do when focusing on two courts. Just on Ballyhale as well, it was another instance of absolute brilliance from TJ Reid, who is just like, and someone commented, I think, on Chrissy's thing on Chrissy's tweet, and they were just saying, oh no, it's the Slaughtneil manager actually just said, we basically come up against the best free kick taker of all time. He said you have lads in games that will, you know, brilliant free takers that will still miss one or two. He literally didn't miss yesterday from 100 yards inside, and I just was even studying his free taking style as well. And it's just so meticulous. Like the hurl is literally within a millimetre of the ball, just for a second or two before he picks it up. Everything is just military, and he was just deadly. And I kind of put up a tweet yesterday saying I think his best attribute is his selflessness and his ability to work for others. He soloed through for Colin Fennelly's goal, and he 100% knew he was going to be absolutely upended, and just threw a lovely hand pass out of his right hand into Fennelly, took an absolute whopper of a shoulder, having delivered the pass, and Fennelly put in the net. But he just doesn't care. He'll do those hard yards that need to be done and then to put other people in good positions.
And then 20-12, the night of the match, later on that evening, he put up an Instagram post about him out with cows calving.
That's the job, yeah, that's the job. Love to see it.
Is Colin Fennelly heading towards the king of club hurling at this stage? You think over the years he's always performed very well and he's scored goals on big days. But was it a hat-trick in the All-Ireland final, or it was definitely
four, was it not? No?
And
he got 4 against Naivana in the Leinster match, yeah.
But the All-Ireland final against Thomas last year, that flicked
the brilliant
goal,
flick,
you know,
yeah.
And then he does it again yesterday. Like, I remember that one that hit the post and came back out.
Stop, yeah.
Like, he is some proposition.
He's unbelievable. He gets the ball, you're goosed. If he gets the ball, you're goosed. Someone said yesterday how many goals would Colin Fennelly scored if he wasn't allowed to take a certain amount of steps. He's been absolutely, the word that came into my head was molested. Yeah. He's been absolutely like destroyed. Every time he gets the ball, he's been pulled left, right and centre. It's either a free or he's let go, one or the other. His goal at the end was just class as well. He sees a gap and he just goes through it. Yeah. But he's phenomenal. Like, he's a goal machine.
Isn't it brilliant for Ballyhale that if they're in a bit of bother, they know they can, if they need to win a ball, they can hit it down on top of TJ Reid, who beat most people in the air.
Yeah.
They can throw out Colin Fennelly if they need it.
They put him out centre forward yesterday. It was crucial.
Sure, it's very rare that someone's going to snap a ball over either of them. And sure, then if that doesn't work, we'll throw it out on top of Adrian Mullen. Sure, he's not so bad either.
Yeah.
But there's so many different players that step up at different times. I remember Owen Reid caught an unbelievable ball at one stage. They just have so many different people, like, and enjoy holding at full back. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I think he's starting to become celebrated at this point because he was so derided for a while even.
Yeah, his club performance has been unbelievable. He's so consistent with Kilkenny as well. Just what you mentioned there about their half-hour line, it's kind of like Ballyhale can play it everywhere. Yeah. They can play the long ball and they've no problem getting a ball 45 yards out and lording it into the edge of the square. No problem whatsoever. And invariably something comes off it. Like, they scored 224 and their attack was, you know, shut down in some quarters. Also, the likes of Evan Shefflin and Brian Cody, it's only a matter of time before these guys are donned the Kilkenny shirt. They've class all over the pitch.
I mean, it's a few weeks out, but you would have to think they're going to be raging hot favourites to beat Borris.
I think they're 1-3 or 1-4, something along those lines already. Going to be a really interesting couple of weeks for Mick Fennelly and Johnny Kelly and Offaly. It's hilarious.
Yeah, for anyone who doesn't know, Michael Fennelly is centre back and captain of Ballyhale. He's manager of Offaly. Johnny Kelly is manager of Borris. He's the selector with Offaly alongside Michael Fennelly.
I think it's class. I said it to Johnny before the Munster final, and he
when no one was really thinking.
No one was thinking of it. I just had it in my head. I said, "Yeah, you might get a crack at Fennelly in the All Ireland club final." He said to me, he rang me actually next day to take it out of the piece, because he didn't want anyone thinking that they were looking that far ahead, and he definitely wasn't. But he's just like, I was manager of Portumna in 2010 when Ballyhale stopped us winning the 3 in a row, and I thought he'd never get a crack at them boys again. And it's just mad. Like 10 years later now, he's getting a crack to avenge that one, and Michael Verney is his manager with Offaly. They're working together. Like, just imagine the demographic. It'd be serious sneer in Offaly training sessions between the two of them.
Yeah, because he was asked about it afterwards, and he said, "I'm sure it'll be mentioned once or twice." But very cool customer, and I think to come into Borris, which is, it's a hot box of hurling, like, and everyone's got an opinion and all that kind of good stuff. But he's come in, and obviously I wouldn't have been there for any training session whatsoever. But just the exposure I would have had with him in recent times. Was kind of summed up yesterday, just before the match. I was kind of there with my equipment down by the sideline, waiting for someone to come along, and he was kind of taking up his position. The boys were doing the warm up, and he just comes over, just chatting away, cool as a breeze, just before the match. And I was like, "Look, you're in a good spot. You've everything done." And he's just there. I mean, it was absolutely grand. I've been here before, and I think that's a big thing for Borris, that Borris had never done anything in recent years in terms of winning anything beyond the North Championship, which is no longer as big a deal as it was in Tip. But he's come in with the know-how, having won, and the players are responding to, well, this manager who knows what it takes, and if we follow what he's saying, we won't go too far wrong. And I think that cool as a breeze sort of an attitude, which probably isn't the same all the time, but I was just like, yeah, that's the sort of calming effect you need. Well,
like, they were obviously on the beer after the county final for a couple of days, and then played the Glen a week after. But I'm sure he would have had words with them saying, "Lads, like, this is a glorious opportunity." They were 2 games away from being an All-Ireland semi-final at that stage, and he seems to have been able to refocus their minds very well. Like, it would have been easy for them to have somewhat of a hangover yesterday after, going through the Christmas, and as I said before, people, tipping them on the back, telling them how great they are and stuff like that. The same work ethic was there, and he's back in a position that he's quite familiar with now in an All-Ireland final. It's going to be really interesting.
Whereas Henry Shefflin now 2 years in a row, like his record in terms of winning competitions that he's entered as manager, it's just flawless.
Yeah, I mean, it's savage.
I mentioned to Tim after the Leinster final, and he said, "Well, they didn't win the Kilkenny League or whatever," which is like
you're clutching at straws now when you say that.
League within the championship, but he's basically won the championship both years. He's won Leinster both years. He's in a second All Ireland final in a row. I mean, it's fairly relentless stuff, and. Like, I think these Ballyhale players are so used to going through this routine that it won't take a funk out of them. The question mark will be, can Boris deal with the occasion? We know Ballyhale can, and not only can they deal with it, they can blow it away like they did last St. Paddy's Day.
I don't see the occasion being a trouble. It's just the opposition that's facing. I don't see the occasion being an issue, because
there's so many fires to put out for Borris, isn't there?
Yeah, there is. Yeah.
I'll try and put out the TJ fire.
Brendan might mark TJ. It's all up in the air. It's going to be interesting. It's probably over the next couple of days we'd sit down and kind of maybe start and have a look at the final. With so many interesting kind of conundrums for them to try and solve.
Yeah, don't forget to like and share the video, and if you're new to the channel, make sure to follow us on YouTube. Thanks for watching our game. Don't forget to like and share the videos, and if you're new to the channel, hit subscribe.